Hey, good morning guys, welcome back. My name is Eric Rohr, and if you're new here, we do photography tutorials, business tutorials. If you want the full backstory, go check out the first video. Okay, so today we are talking headshots and how to improve if you're a beginner, totally new to the scene. One quick disclaimer, if you find value at any point while you're watching this, if you can just hit that like button and maybe subscribe, that'd be awesome. So that being said, let's grab some coffee, let's get started. Damn, that's good. Okay, so let's jump in. Okay, first things first. I feel like if I tell you to go shoot on the correct focal length, that's kind of like a no kidding, Sherlock. It's kind of obvious. But I want to point out a specific element that I think is not so obvious. So obviously you want your clients looking good, you want your models looking good, and obviously you want your photos to be great. But more importantly, I think it's of utmost importance that the people that you're photographing, that they think that they look good. Because if you shoot, let's say you shoot on something like a 14 millimeter or something really wide, like a 35 even, and it has this distortion and it's warping their face, that's one more thing where the client's gonna look at it and go, no, I don't like how I look. And you can have the best lighting, and we'll get to that. You can have, just a great setup. You can have like a great backdrop and, props or whatever. And the whole scene can be looking really good. But if you're using the incorrect focal length, the person who's being photographed isn't going to feel, they're not going to feel sexy just from the get-go. So I think it's really important that first things when you're starting out, first things first, you have to be shooting at the correct focal length. But moving on to tip number 2, this one's about lighting. And I know that as a photographer here talking on YouTube, a lot of people will tell you that gear doesn't matter and you can go and create with, available light and window light, and, you don't need the correct lens or whatever. But at the end of the day, gear does matter. I'm sorry to say, but I don't know who came up with that idea, and there is some truth to it, but I think at the end of the day, if you have the correct gear and you have the right lighting and you have the right lens, it will make a huge difference. So that being said, so if you're doing something like headshots, go out and buy yourself some lights. You can get something like a speed light, like a Godox V1. Personally, I use the Godox 8200s. Those are 200 watt lights. I believe they're going for like $350 right now, something like that. You can grab yourself a stand, you can grab yourself the softbox and a trigger, and I think you'd probably be all in for like $600, give or take. I could be wrong on that. But I think it's of utmost importance that if you can go and have your own lighting and you can control the light and control the scene and control where you're building the scene. So if you're only using window light, not only do you have to rely on, on the weather and check if it's going to be an overcast day, you also have to set your scene up right next to the window, which not in every room is that, fully doable. But if you have, off-camera flash, you can really go and do it anywhere and create the scene yourself. And I think that's really important and something that you should totally invest in, like 100%. Okay, so moving on to tip number 3. It's very important that you set your lights up in a way that will give your client the most flattering light. So what you want to do is you want to set your light 45 degrees off to the side. So you're kind of coming in like this. And then also you want to be tilting the light kind of like 45 degrees downwards. So it's kind of like coming like this. So right now I have my key light coming in like this, right? And it's casting light on this side and it's giving a little more shadow on this side. And then I have over here, I have a tube light that's filling in this side. Now, this tube light, this is a story for another day. But if you're only starting with one light, you want to have this one light coming in. So it's 45 degrees off to the side, and it's also coming at a 45-degree angle. It's tilted down at a 45-degree angle. That's what we call in the industry, we call it Rembrandt lighting, and it'll give your client the most flattering light, especially also when you're starting out and you're only working with one light. It's a great look to start off with. It'll give your client some dimension and it'll give them just a flattering look where they'll be like, I look good, Okay, so we're moving on to tip number 4. I hope you guys are enjoying so far. Moving on to tip number 4. This one's kind of important. We're moving away a little from the technical side of things and a little more to the business side of things. So as photographers, as artists, as creatives in general, we want to put our own creative signature on the photos and the work that we produce. And don't get me wrong, I think that's so awesome and so important, and to give it our own artistic vibe. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is, especially if you're doing something like headshots, is you have to be in line with what the client is looking for. For example, as a photographer, as my own creative style, I like dark and dramatic, moody lighting. But if you're photographing someone, let's say like a doctor or a lawyer perhaps, or, a real estate worker, whatever it is, maybe they don't want this dark and dramatic and moody lighting. Maybe they want something that's more a little like clean and even lighting on both sides. It's very important that you have a meeting with your client before the shoot even starts and talk to them and ask them like, hey, what are you looking for? How do you want to be represented? Perhaps even on the discovery call that you have with them, ask them and be like, hey, can you send me a screenshot of something that you've seen that, that you want your photo to look like? It's really important that you're on the same page with your clients and are producing work that is in line with what they're looking for. Because like I said, you can have your own look, you can give it your own twist, but it's really important that you are on the same page with your client and you know exactly what they're looking for and you're producing work that they'll enjoy and they like and they'll want to use in their portfolio, on their website, whatever it may be, but also making sure that you're giving it your own twist, but making sure that those two languages are fused as one. Okay, moving on to the fifth and final tip. Let's jump in. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this whole video, it's definitely this one. Okay, so this is probably a topic that needs a whole video on itself, and I'm just gonna briefly touch upon it here. But I think it's really important that when you're on a shoot, you have to remember and keep in mind that even though you spend all of your time, being on camera or around cameras or just comfortable with the concept of a camera, you have to remember that your client and who they are, they're not comfortable around cameras and they're not comfortable being on cameras. Most of the people that I photograph are be like, oh, I don't photograph well, I'm shy. And I always tell them like, yeah, of course you are, because you don't do it on a regular basis. I do it on a regular basis, but that doesn't mean that you do. And it's important to recognize and work with them and understand that they're not comfortable on camera. So when you're on your next shoot and you're doing a headshot session, remember that majority of people are not comfortable on camera. And remember to work with them. Don't just like pose them and then like walk back to the camera and start clicking away. Be like, hey, okay, this is how you should stand. Okay, we got the standing part down. This is how you should hold yourself. This is what your smile should look like. This is what your eyes should look like. Whatever elements you're, trying to create and to artistically show, it's important that you don't just be like, okay, here, yeah, thing, next, done. No, you have to walk them through it step by step. Be like, okay, we did 10 shots. Let's take a break for a second. Let's get a drink. Let's get a coffee, whatever it may be. But it's important to remember that you have to make your clients feel comfortable and keep the energy, flowing and enjoyable, and not just be like, okay, we're gonna take a headshot. Like, no, you have to work with them and walk them through it, kind of like a baby, like you're holding their hand and helping them walk. It's kind of the similar idea. Also, something to keep in mind is that once you've posed them and once you kind of like got the look down that you want and they're getting the hang of it, when you go back to your camera, don't just hide behind your camera and be like, click, click, click. Talk to them, hype them up, be like, damn, you look amazing. Oh my God, holy Moses, right? And hype them up and get them to laugh and enjoy the experience. Maybe even do like you walk away from the camera, you're just like, oh my God, I can't handle it. You look too good, right? And you get them laughing and you get them feeling comfortable. That's when they'll let their guard down and be like, yeah, no, I do feel comfortable on camera. And that's when you're gonna get the best shots. That's when they're gonna feel comfortable. And that's also the energy that most clients want in a photographer. And then they'll be like, oh my God, you were amazing. Your energy was so friendly and helpful and kind. And that's the element that will have them recommending you to the next person. If you're just like click, 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 like nobody likes that. Everyone wants to be like, feel inclusive and included and just a part of the experience. People don't like to just, be in front of a camera and just call it a day. And also just remember, like, it's not about getting 100 good shots. Like at the end of the day, it's about getting 2 or 3 really good ones that someone can use on their LinkedIn profile, their WhatsApp picture, an Instagram story, whatever it is. But it's really about getting the person to the point of comfortability where their guard is down and you can photograph an authentic, facial expression, an authentic version of themselves. Okay, guys, so we made it through all 5. Thank you for sticking around. If you found value in that, hit the subscribe button. We're going to do a ton more videos like this. If you like this one specifically, hit the thumbs up button. But let's do a quick recap so you don't forget anything. Okay, so number 1, shoot on the correct focal length, 85 or tighter. Number 2, go out, buy yourself some lights. I recommend the 8200s. Number 3, lighting placement. Remember, 45 degrees off to the side and 45 degrees coming down at an angle. Number 4, know what your client wants. Know what they're looking for. Ask questions. And number 5, make sure that you interact with your client. Don't leave them just hanging, bored. Interact with them. Guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Peace!